3.
Well, hello there.
Hello there, PJ. How are you, sir?
What's
Good,
up,
man.
PJ?
Well, hello there, sir. And I have to call you sir, right? I have to
You
call
can
you
call
sir.
me
course you have
sir.
to
You
call
can
him
call me
sir.
Les, whatever you call me. It's all
You
good.
call him sir, PJ.
I don't want to get in trouble.
It's all good, man.
Me
You're
dropping
good.
giving anybody 50. That's it.
You're good.
I'd like to see you drop and give 50. I mean, it
Don't
would
hurt
probably take
yourself.
how many starts and stops would you have to give 50 push-ups, do you think?
You know what? 10 years ago, none.
Really?
Like,
Wow.
Yeah, no worries.
I'm
Now,
impressed.
we'll talk about that on the podcast.
Okay. How about you, Les? How many to do 50 push-ups, can you still do 50 without stopping?
On a good day, probably yes. I probably
Yeah.
on a normal day, probably 2 times, 2 stops.
2 stops.
Well,
Okay.
actually, one stop.
1
25
stop.
to
Yeah.
25.
Once at 49, and then one just to make it as deep as possible.
No. Remember, I'm
I
retired
think
from the Army. It's stuff I need to do that I want to do. I don't have to do.
Oh, there you go.
well, I want to say that I think I could do it in 1, but I believe I couldn't. I think I'd probably be able to get to about 32, 33, and then
Okay.
my arms would give out, and then I could probably give us another 18. But you know what? After the podcast, I'm going to try, and we'll put it in the
Okay.
show notes. So if people are interested in how many
Whoa.
push-ups I can do, it'll be in the show notes.
Well, so now you're going to cause me after I get off of this is to go knock them out, and then I'll send you a picture of the number.
That is a great idea. I think we should do that. In fact, you know what? Let's do this. You and I are both going to do as many as we can. Okay. And we're not going to say the number. We're going to let our listeners and our viewers send a note. You can go to our website, bravingbusiness.com, and just send us a note there and guess how many push-ups each of us did, or which one of us did more. Okay, Les or myself. And the winner will get a prize. I don't know what it'll be, but it'll be a prize.
Oh my gosh. Is that what it is now? It's
It's got to be something.
stuff.
If you don't give something, you're just not going to get the response. That's how.
Yeah.
PJ, shall we introduce our guest? I'm sure people are on pins and needles to know who it is.
Well, they are. Well, I do. I of course I want to introduce him. He's an amazing gentleman. He wanted us to say that he's just an average guy from Atlanta, which is not going to fly, sir. Because he just wanted to say he was a humble guy who was just blessed to serve in the Army.
He is a humble guy. He is actually a humble guy.
Yeah, that's not a lie. But he's just like he's very down to earth. Just 35 years, just finishing as the Inspector General. No big deal. But for us common folk, let's delve in a little bit as to who this gentleman is. He is 3-star General Leslie C. Smith, who is the most recent former Inspector General of the U.S. Army. General Smith currently is the Vice President of Leadership and Education for the Association of the U.S. Army and serves on several corporate boards, including one of Tall's startups, Our Love Company, which that's how I met Tall. He is also—
That's how I met Les.
That's right.
There you go.
Yeah.
Look at that. See? Our Love, just connecting everyone in more ways than we could have conceived. He is also the Carter Chair for Leadership at his alma mater, Georgia State Southern University. Excuse me. General Smith's list of assignments are far too long for me to recite. However, there are among those assignments some notable ones. He was, they're all notable, but the most notable ones, he was command of the 83rd Chemical Battalion, a battalion which saw action in several operations, including Operation Enduring Freedom, Iraqi Freedom, and New Dawn. He served as the chief of the nuclear, biological, and chemical branch.
Do you say nuclear or nuclear? I've always,
Nuclear.
Nuclear.
I say nuclear too, PJ.
Yeah.
PJ, get it right. It's nuclear.
It's all
George
good.
W. Bush would say nuclear, but he got it wrong.
PJ, you can say, where you from, PJ?
My mom. So I was originally born in Florida, and I've lived everywhere.
Okay. What would you say? You are northern or southern, eastern, western? What are you?
I'm more confused. I've lived in the Midwest for most of my adulthood.
Okay. All right. So you're a Midwesterner. So that's okay. He can say that. He's a Midwesterner.
He can say nuclear? Okay, go ahead. Sorry,
Yes.
PJ. Keep going. I apologize.
Here's the best part. You guys are correcting me. I still don't hear it. All right. I just don't. Becoming the 25th Chief of Chemical and Commandant of the U.S. Army Chemical, Biological, Radiological, and Nuclear School.
That's right.
Serving as the commanding officer of the 20th Support Command, becoming the first chemical officer to serve as the commanding general of the United States Maneuver Support Center for Excellence, and, as mentioned earlier, ending his career as the 66th Inspector General of the U.S. Army. It's kind of amazing. His awards and decorations include Distinguished Service Medal.
Please don't read them all.
Don't lead them all.
We're going to read some of them. Actually, they're not all there, believe it or not. But read the one that are on there.
Okay.
Distinguished Service Medal, Legion of Merit, Bronze Star Medal, Defense Meritorious Service Medal, Meritorious Service Medal, Army Commendation Medal, Joint Service Achievement Medal, Senior Parachutist Badge, and both the Joint and Army Staff Identification Badges.
I only have a few of these. How about you, PJ?
Let me count. They're in my closet. I got
okay. After the show.
After the show, I'll be back.
More stuff that we'll put in the show notes.
Yeah. So hold on now. How many years, PJ, for you?
How many years?
of service.
In the military?
Yeah.
Does that count Sea Cadets?
Yeah.
Sea Cadets in 3.
3 years. That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Just Sea Cadets.
That's good. Did you know that, Tal?
I did not, actually.
Okay, look at that.
I thought he was going to ask how many years of service to like his wife, like that. I was expecting him to.
That's servitude. That's
no, I'm leaving that one alone. Step away, step away. Step far away.
Gladly in servitude. Yeah. General Smith also holds a Master of Science degree in administration from Central Michigan University, a Master of Arts degree in National Security Strategy from the National Defense University. And on a personal front, which I'm always interested in hearing more about, General Smith and his wonderful wife of nearly 40 years, Vanedra, have raised 2 incredible daughters. So General Smith, normally we say, it's a great honor to have you on this show, but truly it's a privilege to have you on this show. Thanks, most humble and wonderful man. Welcome to the Braving Business Podcast.
Thank you, PJ. I'm happy to be here.
Well, my friend, my colleague, and someone I admire greatly, General Smith, he and I met under auspicious circumstances. You want to know how we met, PJ? We met on a plane ride. Yeah. We sat next to each other. We started talking.
We kept talking.
Yeah. And we haven't stopped since. I think he did. I think you did, because you were intimidating. I mean, so here a man comes on the plane, right? He is a hawking human being. And you could tell he's somebody. I mean, I didn't know who he was, but I'm like, this guy's somebody, right? And he had I think he had an Army, this was during COVID, so I think he had an Army mask on. And I had a Navy mask on because, my daughter's in the Navy. And I think the question he asked me was something related to that. I think that's what broke the ice. Yeah.
It's the most innocent and innocuous questions that can create lifelong friendships.
That's correct.
And it has.
Yeah.
So let's get started. General Smith, I thought it was funny. Literally, he referred to himself in his interview questionnaire as just an average guy from Atlanta, Georgia, which I think is funny. Obviously, your extensive career tells somewhat of a different story. I'd love for you to talk about your upbringing. Obviously, I know your mom, Lily, is a huge inspiration to you. She raised you and your siblings. Your dad passed at an early age. I think you were 5.
Yeah.
Talk to us about how, your mom and her work ethic and, just all of you guys have been unbelievably accomplished, you and your siblings.
Right. Yeah.
How has she influenced your path in life?
Yeah. I mean, it's we're going to talk about this follow-on questions, but the village is so important, so she didn't just talk about what things were expected. She did it herself. So the strategic decision to first keep us in Mississippi was so critical, because keep us out of Mississippi and stay in Atlanta was so critical, because we were exposed to the arts. We were exposed to, grew up into kids in 1960s and 70s to everything that was going on in the city at the time. The other thing that's interesting is that village of going back to Mississippi in the summers to see who we were. So it's always important for young people to know who they are and where they come from, so they know where they can go. And so I really think that village thing is so important, especially today.
I 1,000% agree. My mom brought us up as well from being a single parent. And I was born and raised in Florida. And so that's where we were living, but she was born and raised in Hawaii. Okay. And so she would.
You said it correctly.
Yeah,
that's right.
I say correctly because I'm part Hawaiian. So
yeah, okay, nice.
Thank you.
And so you're obviously not part nuclear, although you have, I think, nuclear elements within
okay,
us.
come on,
I don't
now.
know
Come
this.
on.
We need.
Come on, Tal. Give PJ
Sakshi
a break.
Back.
I'm gonna
she
stick up
who
with you,
assumed
PJ.
we knew way more about science than we actually did.
It's true. I am composed mostly of water vapor, so don't worry.
Okay.
But so we used to go back and just see all of her family and showing the roots, showing where you came from, what your life experiences was. I used to walk down this street. It just, that context is invaluable.
I think it's important, as a young person, but especially a young man, to know where you come from, and wherever that is from. Then it gives you grounding of who you are. Then it allows you to tell you where you're going to go. If you don't know where you come from, then any road can get you there.
Yeah, exactly. That is so cool. So, when you've done so much. Like when you were wearing a uniform, how big? Like, was it both chests just filled with ribbons and metal?
Hey, so PJ, you can Google me, man. So just tell your listeners they can Google Lieutenant General Leslie Smith, and it's still out there. I'm not that far retired that you can't see my stuff on my chest, but yeah, it's humbling, and it has to do with the positions that you're in, but also the Army. You get raised in the Army, get reared in the Army, so you don't just pop in as a 3-star. You start as a young officer, where we went to school at Georgia Southern and come into the Army, and you just have fun until you go off to do something else.
Did you start at ROTC?
I did. Georgia Southern University. That's another story in itself. You got time to tell it?
Of course you do. It's a podcast. Great. We have no limits on time.
Oh, no limits. This might be a three series podcast.
3-part interview.
Yeah, 3-part interview. This village thing is important, and we're going to come back and forth to that a couple of times. So I'm a senior in high school. This is April or May of the year you graduated. I'm supposed to know I'm going to school, right? It wasn't as much pressure on us growing up as it is today with kids. So my RTC instructor says, "Hey, Cadet Smith, what do you want to do?" "Well, I want to be a business guy." He says, "Why don't you join the Georgia National Guard?" I'm like, okay. And then the second part that was so key to that, a good friend of mine had a cousin at Georgia Southern. So I'm from Atlanta. Anything south of Macon was the country, okay, like really country. So we went down there, and the ROTC program was just starting up since World War II. So they needed cadets. So the ROTC instructor said, "I got a deal for you. I'm going to make you a lieutenant in 2 years." "How can you do that?" "Because you're going to join the Georgia Army National Guard." Think about that.
So they're moving you on. They're bringing you in.
But not only that. So the decision to go to a school that I didn't know existed, to be in a place, to do a job that I didn't know it had to come later. Even though I thought I was going to do the military because my dad was in the military, my sister, brother, cousins, and uncles, many served in the military, but I didn't know that was going to be my route. I knew I was going to go to college. And of course, that's why I'm at Benoit too. So it's like, whoa, okay.
It's amazing how, look, you could look at it in 2 ways. You can say it's luck, or you can say it's fate. I believe in fate. So to me, that's the journey you're supposed to travel.
Can I change that?
Somebody needed to get you there. Sure, you can.
I won't call it fate. I call it a blessing.
Well,
so fate sometimes can be perceived as negative. So the blessings that we receive are the opportunities that we can go move forward. The question is, are we ready to accept the blessing that we receive every day? So think about us being on the plane. That was a blessing. That wasn't luck.
I agree.
That is all right. There's another T-shirt that's going to be made.
I love it.
I'm going to charge you for that one, man. I'm going to charge you.
I don't know. You obviously didn't read the small print on the.
That's okay. That's okay. Hey, you get me now, I get you later. How about that?
That's right. So yeah, let's talk about transitioning. I mean, obviously the military was, the vast majority of your life, and and you and I met while you were still serving. In fact, I had the incredible honor of being there for your retirement ceremony.
What'd you think of that?
It was incredible.
Tell us more about
pageantry.
That. Yeah, tell us.
Well, geez, I mean, you're talking about a full arena. I mean, this was a full arena with like 1,000 people, maybe more. Honor guard, all the top brass of the military, obviously his wife and children, his mother, friends, family. It was just incredible. I mean, the pageantry of it was amazing. And I'd never been to anything like that. And we needed security clearance to get on the base. And it was, yeah,
not quite. They just had to do a background check on you, man.
Well, background check, right? Yeah. And I passed. I don't know.
I was going to say, military must be getting lax. Jeez.
No, they sent me the name. I said, "Oh, go ahead, let Tal in.
Let that guy in, right?"
Yeah.
So back to the question. So moving from the military career to where you are now, where you're both on the advocacy side, you're in the business world, you're sitting on some big boards, some smaller boards, and moving from a position of having such enormous authority in an institution that's very much top down to the business world. I would imagine it's not as easy people might think. People might think, oh, he's a big general, he knows that what's the big deal. Talk to us about that. What were some of the obstacles you faced making this transition? Did you feel anything like imposter syndrome, right? Did you feel like, man, I don't know that I belong. I don't know that I can do this. Or did you just feel like I got this?
Yeah, well, remember the village occurs inside the family and outside your immediate family. So as soon as I made my 3rd star, I had someone that I admired, one of my mentors. And that's something for your listeners, find a mentor, somebody who's not going to tell you exactly what you want to hear, but what you need to hear. And he said, look, General, you're going to transition different than everybody else. And we know in business, it takes 3 to 5 years for you to start getting to the places where you want to go. So the day in the month or so after I made the 3rd star, he said, you need to start a transition out. I'm like, what do you mean? I don't have time. He said, yes, you do. And yes, you will. And what it caused me to do, it caused me to think differently about the things that we're doing. It didn't change in the decisions that I made, but you have to transition out, because what that does is it frees the people that are watching you transition. If you do it well, it allows them to do it well. So if you run through the tape, like I see so many peers do, and then they look at, well, what am I going to do next? Yeah. So your family's trying to figure out, where are you going to live? What are you going to do, Dad? And you owe it to them to what those things are. And oh, by the way, the same things that you use in the military, the same skills, knowledge, skills, and attributes are what's needed in corporate America. And I didn't know that at first, but the more I interact, the more I learn that it is the same. Trust is the same. Risk is the same. Vision is the same. Again, I could talk about this all day.
Well,
I love it.
It's not. I'm trying to think here. The military, though, yes, there's a lot of correlation. There's a lot of.
You cannot call a bombing on your corporate adversaries the way you can call a bombing on your military adversaries.
Yeah, but you can't just bomb your buddies if you want to. And in the military, but how you do it is by you co-opt them via how you operate. You co-opt them about being a great team player. You co-opt them by providing them a vision for the things that you want to do. And when you involve people, you bring them on board. And if you help somebody else, that's how you get the job. So I want leaders to think about helping somebody else succeed. That's how you succeed.
Yeah, I agree. Well, PJ, you disappeared there for a second. I thought you were off the podcast. I don't know what happened there. I think
I don't know what happened
your
either.
Picture froze. You had a look of deep concentration on your face. I wasn't sure whether you were trying to pass gas or you were just actually listening.
Oh, no.
Wow.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Which was it?
The look doesn't change. If I pass gas, you can just my eyes are watering. That's the only really difference.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
No, sorry. Yeah, you guys froze as well. So I was listening. You had frozen talking about how to eradicate your your business competitors.
No,
That was me. He had a much better answer. So
yeah.
You'll hear it when we listen back. And
Sure.
his answer was much
good.
better
But
than
to
mine.
summarize really quick before you ask your question is you co-opt them with helping them succeed too.
Nice.
That's because people think we're competing against each other. We're really competing against a standard. And if you're my competitor, if I think you're my competitor in the company, if I help you succeed, that means the company succeeds. And then we both do well. And I'm really not competing against you.
That's a beautiful way of looking at things. Really.
Yeah.
Because competition, so people see business as so cutthroat. And so I have to step on someone in order to get ahead. And no, that's a refreshing thing. In fact,
well, I think that's definitely changing, particularly within cultures, right? I mean, I think even I actually agree with General Smith. I think competition, the old school competition that you saw in maybe movies in the 80s, right, where it literally is all out warfare. Yeah. There's some of that, but it's not as common. I think nowadays it's more you compete, but within an organization. I've seen a move towards more collaboration, a lot less, intense competition among departments and people. It still exists, but less so.
That's good.
Very cool. So you provided a statement to us, which was develop a plan, share it with key people. Don't be afraid to ask thoughtful questions and take time to think. And that, we kind of see that as a very universal blueprint for success. Since you signed the small writing on the paper, we're going to use that as a t-shirt as well.
Thank you, Les.
Anything for you, pal.
That's a lot of words on a t-shirt. But anyway, could you share a story from your journey where you kind of came up with this coinage and how it was helpful in navigating a challenge?
Yeah, I stole it from somebody else. I didn't steal it. It's share ideas freely and steal ideas judiciously. So one of my my bosses, General Dempsey,
t-shirt.
It's true.
That's right.
General Dempsey was a training and doctrine command commander, responsible for all the training across our army. And so he brought us in. We did this thing called a SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and developed a strategic plan. We all knew where he wanted to go, but he involved every leader from 1 star up to say, hey, you commandant, hey, you commander, you have input to this. I want to hear what your input was. Okay. And so I was like, wow, this is brilliant. This guy's a 4-star. He's busy, but he's taking the time to show us, give us the vision, give us the time to work on it, and then ask the questions to get the feedback needed to develop and refine the plan. Because it could be something that he doesn't see. So since that time frame, I've taken that same concept to every other organization that I've been in to help speak to what that strategic plan is. And I will tell you, if we do it in business, it helps with culture. It helps when people know where they're going. And I could talk about. I've seen different organizations. I've seen the organization my daughter, my oldest, works in now. And I can tell which one has a good culture. I can tell which one has a good vision because how they interact, how they operate, how they treat their people. And I saw it as the IG too, as the Inspector General. It's the same thing.
Yeah, and and adversity. I mean, obviously, this podcast is about overcoming adversity, and you've overcome your fair share. Losing your dad when you were very young, for one thing, and obviously being in the military and in theaters of war all the way to the halls of Washington D.C. Talk to me about why expecting adversity is actually important. Actually, expecting it. And building resilience from a place of expecting it. How is the expectation of adversity something that's shaped the way you lead?
Yeah. I think as you mentioned, seeing the things that happen to you in your life, everyone's going to fail and everyone's going to have to deal with adversity. The question is how you take what happens and go forward. There's 5% of what happens to you, 95% of what you do when you respond to that situation. So I saw it at a young age. I mean, I can tell you about my mom, that strategic decision. I did tell you guys, she sent us all to private elementary school. How did she do that? I don't know. I mean, it helped a little bit that we weren't all there at the same time, but making that strategic decision to do that. We went to Frederick Douglass High School in Atlanta, which is like the #1 school in the city. This happens to be where we were living. We live in an apartment. Right next to it was the church that we became members of. So either I was in school, at church with the scouts or something else, or at home. So it was about that village. So she was smart to put those things in place and always get us involved in what things, the different activities that are out there. The computer or the iPhone is good for some things. A lot of things is not good. What they need to do. So we just need to involve folks. And then the other part too is that we grown-ups have to make it okay for kids to fail. We got to make it okay for people to deal with adverse situations instead of saying, oh no, my kid's got to have an A. No, if they didn't get A work, they should have a C and just recover from it. The other part I will tell you, in the military, we stood up this thing called a Ready and Resilience Team, and now it's called Holistic Health and Fitness. And it's interesting because it's about how you hunt for good things. It's called Hunt the Good Stuff, right? And I have a premise of, if you look for good things every day, you will find them. If you don't, you will find negative things. And that's what you'll think about all the time. So the more you look for good things, that's what entrepreneurs do, right? They see options and opportunities that other people don't think. We both could be looking at the same thing, but an entrepreneur will take it and say, I see opportunity. When everybody, you got to be kidding me. What? An opportunity out of this? So, yeah, that's it.
I think
an answer. I love it.
Oh, it's great. I think that a lot of entrepreneurs look at something and they say, well, I could do that.
Yeah.
Just that's
well, I could do it better. I mean, I think
you could do it better,
most
right?
commonly. Yeah.
Right.
So you had another a great quote. Yeah, a lot of t-shirts. A leader's presence only matters when he's present.
Yeah.
Or she's present.
Yeah.
It it's I just love high concept stuff. It just makes total sense. How did you come up with this idea? What have you
Who did you steal it from?
Yeah.
I'm just guessing.
I didn't take that from anybody.
That one is you. Okay, great.
Okay. All right. This is an original.
Sure.
Perfect. How did you remain present, right? When you were in various leadership positions, whether it's in the military or business or even at home.
Yeah, well, my wife Benita would tell me I'm not always present, so I can't take credit for that all the time. but what I will tell you is that engagement, and I did learn this. I saw it demonstrated. I'll tell you a quick story. So I'm taking command of the Army's only Chem Bio Rad Nuke High Yield Explosives Command. 5,500 soldiers.
Could you explain what that is? What
I'm going to explain to you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you.
Chemical, biological, radiological, high yield explosives comprised of all the Army's explosive ordnance disposal and weapons of mass destruction soldiers. 17 states, 19 installations, 3 to 5 countries, depending on what time of the year. So I'm coming in command. It's up in Aberdeen. So the 4-star general flies in. We pick him up. We have a little nice reception, and they knock on the door and say, hey, sir, it's time for the assumption of command, because the previous general had left to go to another job. So I'm like, okay, great. This is great. So I'm explaining to the General Thurman, another one of my mentors, and we're talking going down, and we're walking down. Everybody wants to talk to the general. I'm like, sir, we need to go ahead and start. He just asked every soldier, hey, I'm J.D. Thurman. Where are you from? Because the soldier's like, oh, freaking out. And he shakes every kid's hand. And I said nothing else after that. And I was like, I got it. So every engagement, and this ties into corporate America too, every engagement that you have with a person, especially if that person works for you, only is it important as you being present. The CEO's got millions of things going on, but the influence of the individual helps the organization. That's another one for you, PJ. And so
I love it. I mean, I think
because
wise.
if you're present in a situation, you deal with that right there. And here's what else you're doing. You're sending vision. You're talking vision without even talking about it, by doing it, right? And so, and another little interesting tidbit, and I always tell the youngsters I'm teaching class at Georgia Southern, is go ask the people who could do nothing for you, like the people cleaning up or the people serving, when you go eat today. Hey, how you doing? How was your weekend? And watch their face light up. And you don't do it just, oh, I'm just trying to be a good guy. Yeah, you are trying to be a good guy, but the point is it will change how you look at things. And the more we do that, the better we can achieve the outcomes that we're trying to get to. Because we all want the same thing. Our kids to do well, to be successful, and we could do that together.
It's we just I don't know exactly when this episode will be released, but we released an episode today that was an interview with Alex West Steinman, who's a brilliant woman, African American CEO who started a co-working place for women and people in the LGBTQ community to feel more safe. And in talking about some of what motivated her to do it, she shared with us that a big part of that was just the ability to see people, just see them. And there are no communities that don't count. There are no individuals that don't count. Everybody counts.
That's right.
And
everybody
I think
has a part.
Yeah. Yes. 100% agree. So look, I know that one of the things that you're really keen on is bringing more veterans into business, and you think that corporate America should be more proactive about it. And it's not charity at all. It's results over charity. Yes. Talk about what you think unique attributes and skills that veterans bring to the table in a business setting, in particularly in the context of resilience and being able to overcome obstacles.
Yeah. Well, I can give you an acronym. We have a lot of those in the military. It's called leadership. It's called loyalty. It's called duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. So think about that. If I'm a CEO of a company and I can find somebody who has the knowledge, skills, and abilities, but on top of that, they have that. And on top of that, they know how to build trust in the organization. They have a esprit de corps, spirit of the organization. They know what a good steward is. And think about if you could package that up, how much would that be worth to a company? I think I've asked business leaders this a lot, because if somebody comes in, regardless of whatever level you're hiring them in, they come ready-made. What is that worth? 60,000, 100,000, 200,000? I think the higher you go, the more it's worth. But if you put them in the right places, more than just, doing what we perceive as menial tasks, if you think about it, if I am a platoon sergeant, somebody, sergeant first class in the Army, leaves at 20 years, he was in charge of a platoon with his lieutenant of 40 young men and women, probably responsible for about $5 to $10 million worth of equipment, right? Responsible not only for the mission, but their lives. What is that worth? Think about that. And if they do, again, I want folks to understand, it's not a charity case. It's about profit and loss. If I could hire 100%, you need diversity of thought, diversity of background. But the more veterans that you put in your organization, the better that it helps you see, understand vision, all those things that you don't have to teach people again, and they know how to work together on a team.
So I agree with that. Obviously, I'm a military dad, so I'm a little biased. But I've seen my daughter who graduated from college, 4-year college degree. Yeah. Then joined the Navy. She's now a petty officer. And she was always very disciplined and someone that was self-driven. But her confidence and her ability to see the big picture and communicate the big picture, it elevated in ways, that, as a father, makes me so proud. As an American, makes me so proud. Hi, Sophia. Dad loves you.
Hey, Sophia.
So far, the one thing that you haven't talked about, I want to hear about your struggle, right? So you made the move from the military to business. Yeah. So far, it's been a little bit of apple pie and puppies in how you've described it. Tell me about how you felt inside. You took off the uniform. The stars are gone. You're putting on a suit. You're walking into the boardroom of, a multi-billion-dollar company whose board you sit on. How does it feel? Do you feel any vulnerability, or are you?
So let me be honest. I remember I tell you about failing. It's okay to fail. It's okay to be afraid in a situation. Oh, by the way, when I used to jump out of perfectly good airplanes, I have 51 jumps. I was stationed at Fort Bragg, now Fort Liberty, if you weren't afraid or respected what things were, there's a problem. So the respect was there, and understanding what the role and responsibility and the part that you have to play in the organization. And then I think as long as you stay humble in the things that you need to do, you're focused on what you have to do. You focus on the preparation that you have to make. But the more you interact with folks, the more you realize, like, oh, I'm in the right place. I am called to do this. It's not a job. And, you know, we could talk about that too. Some people are called to do a mission. The right thing is helping people in general, but especially young people, find what they're called to do, not just a job they do. Because if you find what you call, it's like it's not work. You could put that on a t-shirt too, BJ.
Maybe a poster. That one a poster, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
My whole wardrobe is 3-star general's quotes. It's wonderful.
Yeah. but Tal, to ask, I mean, because I want people to understand that, yeah, you're supposed to be fear is not the right word. You're supposed to be respectful of, humbled by, understanding.
Why isn't fear the right word? I mean, sometimes we are just afraid. Fear. I mean, fear is actually the root of a lot of things. You know, I'm reading an incredible book right now called Letting Go, and it said that ultimately almost everything in our lives is rooted in two things: fear, actually, fear of survival, and the desire to be happy. Right. So those two things are ultimately will motivate us to do almost everything or anything.
Well, how about I change this? I don't believe in the spirit of fear, but I believe that I have the power and love and a strong mind, that I have the ability to do it because I've been prepared for the point to do that. Right? Fear is in my viewpoint, is a negative reaction to something that you have the ability to be positive from. So yes, some people might say it's fear. I'll say, yep, this is a tough situation, but I have the ability to do it because I've been prepared for doing it.
But let's for a second. I mean, but at some point, you know, as you said, jumping out of airplanes, you feel fear. Okay. I mean, so fear is something we all have to deal with. It depends. You know, some of us have to deal with it jumping out of airplanes.
Yeah.
Others have to deal with it in speaking in a room in front of a few hundred people. Right. Different people have different things that scare them. There's something about conquering fear that gives you that confidence. Obviously, you know, it's very interesting, PJ. As I'm listening to General Smith, I'm thinking about the other guests we've had here, none of whom I think have served in the military, at least not in these senior roles. We have had, Undersecretary of Commerce Francisco Sanchez, and he also had some interesting, similar things to say about service and mentorship. But I feel like we are seeing the difference between someone who's spent his career in the military and people who haven't, because I think you have fear doesn't, this is going to sound ridiculous, but fear doesn't scare you. And I think most people find fear sometimes paralyzing.
Right.
And I think that you view fear in an entirely different light.
Well, I mean, to be honest, you know, everybody has things that they can be fearful of, but it doesn't drive what I need to do or the things I got to do, because of what I'm called to do. And I don't want to be deep for your listeners, but
why not?
Let's weigh it. So is this fear high enough for me to stop me from what I'm called to do? The answer is no, because what I'm called to do is more important than anything that I could be afraid of, what I perceive to be afraid of, right? Because most of the time, something that we're fearful of, once we conquer, is like, wow, was it really that bad?
And you know what? Sometimes it may have been bad in the moment.
Yeah.
But it was for a reason. I hung something over my desk this weekend. It's short, and it's from it's a quote from at the Love Change. That's the people that put that out. It says, "I'm allowed to be both a masterpiece and a work in progress. Everything I thought was happening to me is actually happening for me. I trust in divine times. I know my life is meant for amazing things. There's nothing handed to me that I can't overcome. My resilience is a reflection of my purpose." And I thought, wow, this is really, you know, with everything we're doing in Braving Business, with everything I'm going through in my personal life, with everything we go through as human beings.
Right.
That seemed like a message that resonated with me.
Yeah. I think collectively, though, we're all responsible for helping each other through the journey. And so, when we don't talk about it, then we think that it's just us. And I appreciate you sharing that before we came on the net about what was going on, because we built that level of trust, right? Because that's another subject we could come back to. But the thing is that if we as leaders show that vulnerability about trust, or show that vulnerability about the challenges or struggles that we have, again, it frees everybody else up to say, it's okay to say, I'm not having a good day. Well, it's okay to say, hey, my kids were sick last night. Well, roger that, stay at home, right? You'll be more effective taking care of them. They're trying to rush into the office, be calling all the time on the phone, see how the kids are doing. I want you ready to go. But a leader does that because they provide that climate, that vision of the organization to do it.
Allowing their people to be present as well.
Yes, you got it. You got it, PJ. Yeah.
Well done, PJ. I'm impressed.
Hey, so the other part that you want to do is I learned this at Fort Bragg too, now Fort Liberty, is you want to create this thing called little groups of paratroopers. So if you look back in the history, even when we had Operation Market Garden, the start of Normandy, these guys went to places and they dropped in the places where they thought they were supposed to be, but they didn't land where they were supposed to be. But they understood their mission, right? And so they went in as little groups of soldiers, paratroopers, and created havoc. And so you want to create little groups of, you put your name in there in a positive way. So you create people like, I want to be like him, or I want to be like her, because I take all the positive attributes and I create those same type of things. And that's what we kind of do at Association United States Army. We haven't even talked about that yet.
We got to talk about that.
Talk about it.
Why am I at AUSA?
Why
you want to know
there?
why?
I do. I also want to hear about your podcast.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the podcast.
One thing at a time.
So General Brown comes to me 6 months before I retire. I'm still the Inspector General. He's retired. Says, hey, Les. And he's one of my mentors. I've known him for a long time. What are you going to do next? I don't know. This, that, and the other. I'm developing a board practice. He said, you ever thought about coming to Association United States Army? Really? What will I do? Well, we're standing up this great thing called the Center for Leadership, and you'll be in charge of education and program. Well, I get to talk about all the things that I did as the Inspector General, but then I can help fix it. Wow. So the Army's association is Association of the United States Army. So we're responsible for helping to educate, inform, and connect people in the Army, people to the Army, and people throughout the Army together. We could do things I can do out of uniform that I could never do in uniform. And we're responsible to help tell the Army story. We don't necessarily do a great job. Provide support to soldiers and their families and veterans and communities. But I'm stoked. I'm fired up every day.
I love it. And how about the podcast? Talk about the podcast for a second.
It's called Army Matters. And you can find it on all your podcast locations. And I'm one of the co-hosts. So I know how this thing goes. Me and the 15th Sergeant Major of the Army, Dan Daly, we have great people coming on. We talk about all different types of topics, from somebody who named their kid Army. And it's true, Army. And then also but I'm gonna go tell a whole lot more, because you got to listen to the podcast. And just really great stories about, we just did one with, we just renamed Fort Lee to Fort Arthur Gregg. We talked to General Arthur Gregg for like an hour. He's 94 years old. It's just great.
Does he still have it? Is he still sharp?
He's still very sharp. I mean, it was like, he still drives his own Lexus hybrid. And I was like, sir, you're driving yourself? Oh yeah, I love this car. Just jumps in the car, he's out and does what he does. And it's so powerful, and it keeps me motivated. But when you get a chance to listen to it, you're gonna have a lot of fun. The guy who did Restaurant Impossible.
Mm-hmm.
No, I can't say I do. Is that a television show?
Yeah, television show. You don't know about that? Yeah, he's been on our podcast. He's helped us out with soldiers. I'm looking it up right now.
Yeah. Is he trying to place soldiers in careers?
He is. He has. And he does a lot of good things. Robert Irvine, Chef Robert Irvine is a great guy. When you see him, you'll know what I'm talking about. But we just got awesome. a lot of great topics.
The person who had the child named Army,
yes,
please let there be 4 other siblings.
Yes, I think that's fair, right? All the branches need to be represented.
No,
I
no,
think that's
no,
fair.
no.
Wait, did you include the Coast Guard in that, PJ?
So I did.
Is the
You did.
Okay, great.
I won't tell you her name, but I want you to listen to the podcast because I want you to. But she has a new movie out. It's called Lioness.
Okay,
I think it's on Netflix. So you should go check it out.
Yeah, I will. That
Her
sounds...
name is, I'll tell you, it's Jill Wagner. Her and her husband. Her husband's in the Army and doing great and wonderful things in the Army Reserve, doing great and wonderful things.
Oh, I know Jill Wagner. She's been in a bunch of Hallmark movies.
Yeah, and she was on, what was that show that people Wipeout? I think she was in Wipeout.
Yep, she was the
host.
Yeah. I met her a while ago. She's good friends with a person that I had on another podcast of ours that we kind of talked about earlier, What the Parent. Cindy Cowan. Cindy Cowan is a Hollywood producer, and that's how I got to meet Jill Wagner. That's cool.
Great. Yeah, small she's good world. People. It is. He's getting smaller.
Yeah, it is.
It's 1 degree of separation. Do you know that, PJ?
I have heard that, sir.
Yeah.
So I thought it was 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon. No, that
no,
that
1 degree of separation of good people.
Okay.
That's another.
I'll look it up.
Yeah.
So what I've heard that I needed to hear this story.
Yeah.
Which is how you met your better half.
Oh yeah, that's a great story.
Yeah, it is a great story.
We had Georgia Southern, and it was I'm a member.
And then talk about how your conversation went with her after you got your first star.
Let me tell the story, Tal. Come on, man.
All right.
Come on, bro.
Go ahead.
This is my story, and she's not on the podcast. I'm gonna tell her from my version.
Oh, all right.
All right. So we're at a fraternity party. I'm a Kappa, and so her and a roommate were carrying out food. You know, guys are always hungry. I said, "Hey, you guys gonna finish all that food?" And she's like, maybe. So I follow him to the room, and I'm like, "Hey, there's somebody that likes you." She's like, "Who?" And then so she's telling the roommates, like, "I'm gonna let this guy get enough rope till he hangs himself." And lo and behold, the months went by. Next thing you know, we started dating, and the rest is history. So you know, I'm not gonna say I was arrogant. I was confident. How about that?
You
were arrogant.
Love it.
You're arrogant, but it's okay. You know what? When we're young, we just don't know any better, right?
Yeah.
And arrogance is our version of confidence. But you know what? I when I went to your retirement ceremony afterwards, there was a banquet, and I had the opportunity to talk to some people who served under you, and not even necessarily in senior roles. And I heard from one of the, actually it was the wife of the person who served under you. She said, Mrs. Smith is like the mother of the base. I mean, she takes care of everyone. Everyone knows, that she's there. Talk to us about that. I mean, I mean, what can she tell? I mean, I would imagine she could tell us a thing or two about resilience, being married to somebody that was deployed a lot.
Oh, most definitely. I think we don't take advantage of the entire skill set. We've done podcasts before. She's on a podcast with me about marriage and couples.
PJ, you have to have him on What the Parent, clearly.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so she would say, understanding roles and responsibilities and parts that one has to play. And she likes people just like I do. And she cares for people. And you can't fake that. Right. Mm-hmm. So just like you do with an animal, they can sniff you out. So as soon as you come serious, as soon as you come into the room, they know whether or not you're real or not. And those people who are real will feel it. Those who are not won't. And so that was the key thing. And we knew that it's some things that she could do and places she could go that I at first never would go, never should go, but the message had to be told. And people, again, you have to free other people up by being real. We'll always try to be real with people because it's not good to be fake because you can't hold it up for a long time. And you got to be, how are you doing today? Like, no, hey, how's everything? Tell me about yourself. I mean, and be really serious about it because they know whether or not you're faking it or not.
So see, you didn't tell the story. I'm going to make you tell the story about. It was a couple of decades later, and you get
about
your
making
stars
general?
at general.
Oh
yes,
yeah. Okay,
so
I got another one. I got a bunch of stories. Trust me. So I get selected for 1-star general. So PJ, it's like a 0.05% select rate, right? So of 6,000 cadets that become lieutenants, there's 40 that become general officers. You do the numbers. So I walk in, I don't know where we were. I think we were in Lindenwood. I don't know. I can't remember. I come in and say, hey, honey, we just made the 1-star list. She says, oh, that's good. Looks up. I don't know what she was doing. Says, now, oh, that's good, honey. Now take out the trash. What was that it? Is that it? Okay, yeah. So
that's it. I love that story.
So yeah, she definitely keeps me grounded. And I have 2 daughters too, so they definitely keep me grounded in things that I need to do.
Is one of your daughters in the military? I mean, one of your daughter worked for us at our level. Is the other daughter in the military?
Yeah, she's actually and that we could talk about that for a long period of time. She's actually on a 4th year of Howard medical school at Howard. And nice. If you think about it, we have a shortage of doctors. We have a shortage of minority doctors. There's a shortage of minority female doctors. And she didn't have to pay for college. Think about that. Think about how much it costs to go to medical school.
Yeah,
well, I can tell you how much it costs to go to Tufts. I have a son who's at Tufts, and somebody needs to evaluate the cost of higher education.
Well,
yeah, I know you know what, you talked about him serving, and I mean, yeah, I remember that. I remember you
I'm
talking
not done with
him
him yet. You just need to bring him down to Northern Virginia. I'm going to take him to lunch. He'll be done. I promise you. I'm going to get him.
He is doing some amazing things, my son. Good. I'm so proud of him.
What is he doing? Engineering?
Mechanical engineering and
perfect,
and astrophysics.
Perfect. So, I want him to come to the Corps of Engineers. Perfect. They got more civilians than military.
We're gonna have that conversation.
Okay,
you know what? You know what he's doing right now? He's learning Hebrew. My son. I mean, I'm from Israel, of course, and I speak Hebrew fluently. And my son has taken it upon himself to learn Hebrew fluently, which I think would be useful in the military. Right?
It will be. Yeah, very strong ties. But for my kids, neither one of them paid for their undergraduate education because I was able to use the Army's GI Bill. And so this thing about service, a lot of people think that you should only do it if you can't do anything else. Frankly, we kind of don't want those. I'm not gonna say we don't want those people, but you want people motivated to do the things they need to do. And I will also tell you, as I interact with young people today, they want to find a sense of purpose. Right. So our job is to help them find that sense of purpose. And I think, frankly, military service or some type of service provides you that opportunity to do so. And that's, again, another reason why I'm at Association United States Army.
Yeah.
So I think that's actually a great segue. We usually end all our interviews with the same question, which is, with all of what you bring to the table, your experiences, your learnings, your life story, if you could offer one piece of advice to our listeners, it could be a word, it could be a sentence, it could be a thought, it could be anything you want, whether they're entrepreneurs, business leaders, or just trying to be good humans, living a life of purpose, what would that advice be? What would be the one piece of advice do you think everyone should walk away from this podcast with?
Since I'm a retired 3-star general, can I get 3?
Of course you can.
Okay.
Sorry, how could I possibly say no to you?
Thank you. First one is have fun in what you're doing or stop doing it. Second is build diverse people around you. And I don't mean just by your color, your skin. I'm talking about background, culture, creed, as I knew about PJ today, and around you, and watch your team grow. And then lastly, I would say is probably the most important thing. Give people the vision of where you want to go. Make it plain for them and talk about it often. And if the leader does that, everything else happens because of them reiterating the same thing. And that just doesn't apply to business. It applies to vision. If you ask, it applies to young people. If you ask a young person, what do you want to be when you grow up? I think I started asking my kids that when they were 7 or 8. And they're like, what do you mean, Dad? I want to be a ballerina. Okay, fine. But if you keep talking about what those things are, then think about, okay, let's talk about what the goals and objectives to get to where you wanted to go or where you want to go. And then our job as a village is to help them succeed in it. As we say.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I actually have been talking about it a lot to people. I ask people, where do you expect to be in 5 years? And, it's, I think you manifest what you want. It doesn't mean you'll get it exactly the way you expect it to be. But if you don't really have a good, clear sense,
that's right, what
you're aiming for, your odds of getting there are very slim. So I would jump on what you're saying, because I think it's really it's the same side. It's the other side of the same coin. Make a plan, have a plan, you know, and the more detailed that plan is, the more chance you have of making it real.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I have one very quick question, and Tal, I've been asking this actually often, and you've provided so many great t-shirt moments for us, sir. Is there a quote that is a favorite of yours, or one that you live by?
Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So,
Nice.
And the other quote I use a lot is I always treat people with dignity and respect. And the other one is part of that is listening to your NCOs. And NCOs are those people who are responsible for you. I use it the other way. I use it with young guys a lot of times. Listen to your NCO, that's your uncles, aunts, parents, and then treat everyone with dignity and respect. And like, why are you saying that? Just think about it. Yeah. And that matters.
Awesome.
Our guest today was the incredible General Leslie Smith, a dear friend, a great human being, a great American, a great role model. We are so privileged to have had you here with us today, and continued success in everything you're doing, the stuff we're doing together and the stuff you're doing on your own. And I know I speak for PJ when I say, having you here is a real privilege, and not just empty words, a real privilege. I know how busy you are. I know how many things you got on your plate. And not only did you take the time to come here, we have this pretty detailed questionnaire for this podcast, and you took the time to answer it. And I mean, I appreciate that. I appreciate you. You're a great human being.
Can I give you another quote before we drop?
Yes, of course you can.
Only busy people do things. Right, Tal? Right?
I think so. Actually, I love that.
People who don't do things, they never have time to do anything. But somebody who's busy can always find the time to do the things that are important.
That is so true. I recently someone said to me that I've lived the equivalent of 10 lives. And I don't think that I have, but I think that, I live with intensity, which can also be a hindrance sometimes. So there's a fine line, but I do want to have an impact on the world, on people. And I know you do. And I think that's why people like us travel and meet each other, and then we stay in each other's circle. Mm-hmm. And I would say to our audience, if you're someone who wants to have an impact on the world, you heard a lot of things in this podcast, listen to it again. If whether or not we have the t-shirts, you have the sayings, and you can live them. Yeah. It's a choice. And, every day when we wake up, we have an opportunity to choose how we want to live our lives, what impact we want to have. We can be mindless or we can be mindful. And you, sir, your entire life is about being mindful. And I'm very grateful to you and for you.
Thank you.
And that, our friends, is a wrap. Thank you so much for being with us on Braving Business. Keep braving on, and we'll see you on our next episode.
Thank you so much.